This is one of the most insane press conferences that I've seen with Coach Bill Belichick, the famous NFL coach of the New England Patriots football team. And right here, I'm going to break down this video where he holds his boundaries, dominates this reporter, and demonstrates how you at home can set boundaries, whether it's in a relationship, in a job, with your boss, so that people don't cross your line and take advantage of you. So we're going to break this video down step by step so that you can learn how to do what Coach Belichick did here as well.
I said to you. Yeah, I'm done with that. Okay. Anything else on Miami? Any other questions?
Can you explain to me when you're done with it? We're just trying to find out if he said anything to you about his position and about the obligation.
Yeah, and I just answered that question.
Actually, you did.
Actually, I did. Okay.
So the first thing right off the bat is Coach Belichick knew going into this question what his boundaries were. So this reporter is trying to get a rise out of Coach Belichick because there's a situation going on off the field with a controversial player named Antonio Brown. And he's trying to elicit gossip and feelings and emotion because these types of things generally do well in press. But Coach Belichick, going into this press conference, knows that he's not going to be answering these questions. So the first thing that you need to do is know what are your boundaries. If you're about to go on a date, you have to know what your limit is in terms of how far you're willing to go with that person. If you're talking to your boss, you have to know how late you're willing to stay that night. So what's really important is that A, you know what your boundaries are, and then B, with no hesitation going into it, you shut it down. So what Coach Belichick does here is two things. One, he immediately shuts it down. He says, I've already answered that. I'm not going there. And then he takes the frame of the conversation back and he goes, however, I will answer a final question on Miami because they're actually playing the Miami Dolphins in the game that weekend, which is the whole purpose of this press conference. So Belichick knows his boundary, immediately shuts down the reporter and holds his boundary, and then yanks the frame of the conversation back, takes control of it, and he says, anything else about Miami? So what he's really saying with his body language and his tone here is, I'm not talking about that controversial situation anymore. I will answer one or two final questions about the actual game. Other than that, I'm done answering questions and this press conference might as well be over. Also, you can see by his look on his face and the level of his shoulders being more down than up, he's breathing in his chest and his body, that he's doing something very important. He is remaining emotionally calm throughout the situation. When he said, yeah, I'm done with that, he did not raise his voice. He stayed cool, calm, collected, which it's also easier to do that when you know what your boundary is in advance and you know that you're going to be shutting down these types of questions in advance. Like if you go into work on Friday and you know that your boss is going to come out of nowhere at 4:55 and ask you to stay for 2 more hours, but you know you have plans with your boyfriend or girlfriend at 7, you know that you have to catch a train. You know your boundary in advance, and you know that if he or she is going to test you on that, you're going to hold firm. And what Belichick does here is he stays emotionally calm, and he has also developed an important skill, which is called unconscious competence. What this means is he's been doing this for so long that he doesn't have to watch these types of videos. He doesn't have to mentally prepare the way you and I might need to get better at these skills. Over time, and I've noticed this with myself, for example, when I'm talking to people or when I'm even doing my coaching business and I'm quickly shutting down people who want to talk every day or break my boundaries as a coach. And I've been able to develop what's called unconscious competence, which means he sees this question a mile away and he shuts it down immediately. But here's where things get really interesting.
You're done with it? We're just trying to find out if he said anything to you about his position and about the obligation.
Yeah, and I just answered that question.
Actually, you did.
Actually, I did.
So here's what happens. The reporter asks a question. Belichick says, I'm done with that. Anything else on Miami? And now the reporter again says, I don't care that you're done with that. I'm not done with that. I don't care what you have to say. I'm going to ask this question again and again and again until you answer it. And what you see, which is really interesting, is Belichick, he's nodding. He's doing a couple things to stay present and to prepare himself to shut this person down again. it's really powerful that Belichick is able to hold these boundaries, but it's not always easy. So he does different things that mentally and emotionally prepare himself. He knows that someone is trying to violate his boundaries, shift away, and so what he's doing right here is he's shifting away, pre-preparing for his exit by doing things such as nodding, darting his eyes around, not giving this guy attention. He's not looking this guy directly in the eye. He's kind of acting aloof, nodding a little bit because he's getting ready to hold up his boundary again. He's by actively disengaging with this type of person. So if you're in a bar, for example, and someone's trying to be rude to you or diss you or make fun of you, you can disengage with that person. Or if someone's trying to violate your boundary or push you to do something you're not comfortable with, you see it coming and you could actually turn your body away. You could start nodding. You could start looking around the room, doing things to prepare your exit. And essentially what Belichick is saying with his body language is, I see you coming. I see what's going on here. I'm going to shut this down again. So Belichick does not allow this. He sees this coming a mile away. He physiologically gets ready for it and prepares himself for it, and then he squashes it. So watch this right here.
Yeah, I just answered that question.
Actually, you did.
Actually, I did.
One line. Yeah, I just answered that question. He holds his boundary for the second time, and essentially with what he's saying, by quickly and immediately dismissing this guy for a second time, he's saying, look, I gave as much information as I'm willing to give you about that, and for the second and final time, we're done talking about this. But here's where things get even more interesting, because to become what's called a boundary expert, you have to be able to handle what's called a boundary tester. So this guy has pled his case to get a rise out of Belichick, not once, but twice. And Belichick holds his ground 2 times in a row solidly, but this guy's not done yet. So check this out.
Yeah, I just answered that question.
Actually, you did.
Actually, I did.
So this guy says again for the second time, actually you didn't, and I want a good answer to this question. Belichick for the third and final time says, actually I did. He stays calm. He's a machine, and he can say no over and over again. If you're going out there and people are taking advantage of you or violating your boundaries, it's easy to be the victim and feel frustrated and out of control and get angry at that person who violated your boundaries. But if you can handle your boundaries the way Belichick has here, by knowing his boundaries in advance, by communicating them firmly, and by holding his ground and not people-pleasing and giving in to other people to try to get approval, he, for the third time, just does this like a machine. He says, actually, I did answer that question, which really means I didn't answer the question, but I've told you several times that I'm not willing to, so we're done here. And check out how it all ends.
Actually, I did.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
That's it. Okay, we're done here. Scene over. We're done here. I have my emotional composure. And if you notice, as he's walking out, he's totally calm and collected. His shoulders are down. He's breathing. He's in his body. He is going to go on with his life. A lot of people, even if they hold their boundary 3 times in a row, would be very frustrated and angry and upset that they would have to hold their boundary so many times over and over and over again. Belichick not only holds his boundary multiple times, but he's cool and he's calm and collected about it even after the fact. He walks out, he goes back to his office, and he gets on with his life. So to recap this, it's very important to know what your boundaries are in advance of a situation. As Belichick did, he said, I'm not going to be answering these questions. He knew that in his brain already. He has experience with what's called unconscious competence of knowing how to say no over and over again while staying, most importantly, number 3, emotionally calm. Because Belichick knows this guy is just doing his job, and even though he is acting quite rudely and trying to violate his boundaries, this guy does a better job as a reporter if he can get an emotional rise out of Belichick. And Belichick knows that, and he's not going to dock the reporter for that. He says, I know who you are. I know what industry you come from. You're not the first, and you're not the last type of person I'm going to have to deal with here. I'm not going to hate the player. I can hate the game, but I know what's going on. I know this is part of my job and part of my life, and I don't have to let other people walk all over me or take advantage of me. Thank you for tuning in for another video. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button on my YouTube channel and drop a comment down below and let us know how you would have handled that situation and what you would do differently next time. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to The Brendan Burns Show, my flagship podcast, which is on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Have a great day.